Amit,
you mentioned something about October 2020. Certain things are going to happen and start going. Well, how will that work out with what people's panel recommend? Because it looks to me as like a certain plan's already underway that, you know, we need to decide who's going to actually make these decisions and who's going to make these recommendations.
I think, like I say, you know, the plan, we did undertook issues and options consultation on the Black Country plan. And like I say, the next stage, you know, will be when we will be drafting our policies and writing, you know, how we would like to see the Black Country in by 2038. So there's nothing stopping you, you know, like I was saying to you, if you go to that website, either you can register as an individual or you could put your representation as people's panels recommendation that this is what we want. So you still have the opportunity. That was only the initial work which was done. All we asked at the first stage was, because like I was saying, the previous plan, which was adopted in 2011, we asked the question, is that fit for purpose? Are the policies contained in that? Are they still relevant, or do we need to change them? And there was only one thing we changed in that was we had a dedicated chapter on health and well-being. So no decisions have been made. It is still very draft, and that's why we are calling it a draft plan. So you have an opportunity, like I say, I think it's summer next year. The timetable is always subject to review because of, you know, the local elections and some things which are not in our hand. But very much, you know, if you want to put your recommendation as people's panel's recommendation, you can very much do so.
So it sounds like there's still opportunity for input, it's still open. And thanks for the question. And just, sorry, speakers, we keep our responses quite pithy. You're going to be around this afternoon, so there will be plenty of other opportunity to go back to speakers as well. Mel, table 2, and then we can move to the flip chart as well. Who's this question for? Who's it for? Corin.
Okay, we wanted to ask, what's your vision for the future of the high street? Apart from the betting shops, charities, etc. that you mentioned already, well, how do you see the high street flourishing in the future?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, we sort of touched on this earlier, and that's why the local plans are so important. It's got to be mixed space. You've got to have more residential space in there for starters. But when the council set the planning strategy and the things, you want to make sure that the quality of the buildings is right. Actually, there's enough green space to share ideas around that. Actually, that some of the ambitions of what things look like, the way that, you know, that you can manage crowds around space is really, really important. But one thing is for certain is that people won't just come into town centres just to spend money in shops. So how do you engage with communities? And the ideal is a very brave council, and I think the start of this process will start talking to community groups and saying, this is what the space is, how do we design that to make something that you feel comfortable with, not something that's so complicated you feel a bit overwhelmed by the actual technicalities of it. Actually start thinking that's a place that I or my family would come and spend time in our leisure time. So this idea of mix of leisure, of retail and residential is absolutely essential, I think.
Chris, I think you held up a red card, which I sort of ignored, but now I'm going to come back. What was the red card for?
I'll give you a better answer. I'll give you a better answer second time round.
Was there anything supplementary or different that your table would like, Michelle? Okay, all right, we'll come back to you. Thank you. Table 1.
Hi, this is a question for Amit. We're wondering how much of the green belt you're going to develop on, and how much green belt you're going to leave left.
I think as I say, you know, the Black Country Plan obviously is for all the 4 Black Country local authorities. And what we did as a part of in the issues and options stage was, this is the first time we have undertook a review of the green belt. So we asked developers and whoever that could you put forward the sites you think will come forward. And I think we had about 195 sites within all the 4 councils. So what we are doing at the moment, we are going through those sites methodically and looking at what are the constraints on those sites. At the present, we don't know how much, but it will be the last resort, the green belt will be. It's very much a brownfield strategy first at the moment. We have looked at all our employment sites, and we have seen, how much we can let go of that for housing. Or
So how much housing are you planning to develop, and is there going to be a limit on the amount of houses that are built?
I think at the moment the plan is looking at about 74,000 homes by 2038, and that's
Where are you getting the date from, 2038? We're a bit confused as in you keep referencing 2038.
2038 is because remember I mentioned about the National Planning Policy Framework. That tells us that your local plan should be 15 years from the date of adoption. So the way we work our plans is the day you adopt it, say you adopt it in 2023, so you add 15 years to that, and that gives you a figure of whatever.
Saying that, sorry, in 15 years' time you're going to be building 750,000 houses?
74,000.
74,000.
That's around all the 4 local authorities. That's not just in Dudley, it's all the 4 Black Country authorities. And like I say, it's not only the Greenbelt and the local authorities. We are also talking to the neighbouring councils, if they can take some of our housing and employment. So, it's not that we are letting go of all the Greenbelt. It will be very, very minimal. At the moment, I haven't got the answer because we are still looking at the sites, looking at how much we will have to let go of. And it will be very clear, as I say, in summer 2020, next year, when we'll have the draft plan.
Okay, thank you. And we can now move to Pandora. There's a question. And then who's your question for?
Our question is to Amit. So, walking down our high streets, we see shop after the shop of the same thing, charity shops, poundlands, all the same thing. How much control do we have over our high streets and what shop goes where and how often it's repeated? And how much red tape is there for small business, artisans, pop-up shops to actually appear? Because it seems like it's very difficult for them.
I think to answer your question, because planning is very much a regulatory process, we work on the land uses. So, for example, if I tell you retail, we say it's A1 use. Offices will be A2. Leisure is this. So we just work on the land use. And we have got policies where we say, look, in our town centres, we will allow for, say, 35% of A1, which is retail, and then X amount of hot food takeaways, X amount of other uses. In terms of pop-up shops, it's not something planning can do. It's the business rates people or the other department which deals with those things, because it's to do with the business rates and, or what other options they have got, which may allow the empty shops to either become pop-up shops, like you're saying, or have a different use. And like I say, as planners, we are aware that the way people are shopping or the way high streets will look is going to change. So you not only go to your high street just to shop, you will have to provide more than that, like adventure, like Corin was saying. So we are aware of that, but it will take time, and we are kind of in a process. That's why it's very important for us that's why we are asking yourselves to get involved in the plan and tell us what types of shops would you like so we can work on those bases. But like I say, planning is very, very land use statutory thing, and some things we'll have to do, or some things are told to us by the national government, which we can't ignore, I'm afraid.
Okay, so some control,
but not all of it.
Not
yeah.
all of it. Okay, table 6. Who's your question
This
for?
is for Corin. Our question is, can anything be done to stop existing businesses or potential new businesses from being priced out of the high street?
Yeah, and I think that's the real big issue, isn't it? Because I think if you want, if you're a small retailer and you're the first time you've got a product range, or you've got some goods you want to get out to market to a retail shop, the commitment for high street shops is big at the moment. So often you might get tied down to take a 2-year contract for rent, and actually, so if you think, for a fairly small unit on a high street, you might be paying, I don't know, £8,000 or £10,000 a year for rent for that, about £10,000, £12,000 on top of that for your business interest rates, £20,000 commitment for a 2-year period is a really big lump of money. So the only way you can really do that and stop being priced out is being completely liberal with the way you manage those spaces. So I'd love to see, 3-month contracts for shops to do retail areas, maybe where you haven't got much place going on anyway, maybe free rental periods and pre-business rate periods for businesses to set up. You've got to take a real big leap of faith sometimes to actually get those ideas. This idea of an artisan marketplace for people to create things and for our creative businesses to stay in areas is absolutely essential, also to lower the demography of area for younger people to stay there as well. But councils need to understand that it's a big leap of faith and it might have an impact on some of their business rates first on. But if you're not brave, those shops are going to go anyway.
Great, thank you. Can I just check, table 4, did you... Yes, come on. Yeah, have a question. I just ignored you. Okay.
Thank you. This question is for Corin. We had one already planned, but it's been asked, so we've tried to read another question for you.
I hope it's easier than the last one.
So, what's your vision for the high street businesses on a commercial level? So, within your remit, your job role, what's sort of the commercial and the Black Country projects sort of vision in regards to the high street? What sort of ideas, but when we like this weekend to do, what's the commercial side of things looking at in regards to their ideas?
Yeah, I think it would be mixed space. I mean, I think for putting retail to one side for the moment, you've got to try and encourage some of those online businesses, maybe to set back up in shop fronts. So sometimes you might have an online business where 78% of your business is being shipped out of the shop for your online, your website sales, and maybe only 10-20% of your business model is actually from people dropping in. And you can use retail units for that. Actually, you can change things around. Some of those things that we were talking about before about office spaces as well in town centres, the more people who live there, the more people will sort of hang around and eat as well. But for really vibrant, for town centres from a retail perspective, it's got to be those smaller businesses who create new products. Because actually once they get commercialised and more people make them, then Amazon will swoop in, make them cheaper and sell them online, won't they? So in my mind, you've got to encourage younger people and people who are creating things to have really flexible spaces, drop-in spaces, and actually start selling stuff that they've made themselves, stuff that you can't normally get online. And also lower the expectations of how many retail units you actually need, because you don't need reams and reams of them anymore. A smaller number, flexible contracts, and actually make them attractive for creatives to set up in.